All right, now that you've had a chance to choose the metrics that you're going to be measuring as you start to move forward into the implementation of your strategy and how they correspond with the information in your unique context, let's move into actually building this management strategy. So there's going to be a lot of different activities and questions that we're going to explore in this portion to get us to analyze deeper the strategy that we might be thinking of now and refine it before we actually move into the action stage. This first activity is going to be identifying assumptions. It can be very easy to overlook assumptions about our work and our management that are actually incorrect or that no longer serve our goals. The problem with making assumptions is that it often feels like you're correct all the way up to the point where you're either proven wrong or you personally realize that you're wrong. And that can be very confusing and can cause problems along the way. The only really effective way to see if our assumptions are correct is to test them. And that's really what this process is based on. So according to the metrics that you've now decided to measure going forward, there's a good chance that you already have a lot of ideas about what you think is going to be an effective way of creating improvements in those areas. And in all likelihood, you're probably right. But until we know for certain, this is exactly why we test. So for the sake of discussion and debate, let's try and list all of the different actions that you could take that would cause significant changes in each of the metrics that you've chosen. Some examples could be, let's say, the baseline metrics that all of us are going to be measuring, like soil infiltration, wet slake through the aggregate test, or compaction rates. You always want to start out first by discussing these with all of the decision makers on your team. Together, do you know why each of those options that you are considering might be effective? Do you understand the interactions that they could have with other parts of your pharmacology or your business, for example? So let's select one of those possibilities as an example. Perhaps you want to improve your soil by decompacting it, and you're going to follow the directions on the instructional video that I made on how to take the test. You've decided to take the tests before planting, and then once again after you've harvested in order to measure the changes. You've got a list now of, let's say, cover crops or subsoiling and compost tea irrigation as different possible opportunities for decompaction. How do we actually assess those and figure out which one is going to make it into your management plan? Well, there's a few questions that we can go through to look into this more deeply, and this way we can challenge those assumptions. The first is, why will it work? Do you actually know the reasons why this technique might be more effective than the other? Also, how does it work? Do you understand the processes, the mechanisms, the science behind the efficacy of any of these things that you're evaluating? What could go wrong? Do you know all of the different effects that these different options have on the ecology and the soil that you're going to be doing them on? Is there anything that could go wrong or cause problems down the line, whether the decompaction is effective or even if it's not? What unintended consequences could happen? How confident are you that you know all of the things and the interactions within the ecology, the business itself, and even the human community that you're dealing with around the actions that you're considering taking? Now, it's fine not to have answers to all of these questions yet. That's what some of these other exercises are for. It's not uncommon if you're trying out a new form of management to need some more information about the options available to you and how they work. I myself have no ambition of being an expert in all forms of farm enterprises and all the different contexts that are out there. Instead, together we're creating a library of links with both free and paid resources that we are really confident that are of high quality. One of the things that I'm available to help you out with is coach matching. If you're looking for a consultant or a professional that you would like to help to guide you on something specific that you're trying to do, this could be a really good option for you. We've got a great network all around Europe of people with specific skills who could really be a help to you in this process. I'm also very happy to make recommendations on other courses or educational material out there. We've got partnerships with many of the leading regen ag educators out there. There are online courses or even in-person trainings that could be appropriate for where you're trying to get to in your own ambitions. And if you have any questions about this, I'm happy to make recommendations. And of course, there's also resource sharing. Part of the reason why we've connected this in with the climate farmers community is that, yeah, I can recommend a lot of things from what I know, but you can also tap into the larger community of farmers, educators, and professionals that we have to ask for specific resources, whether that's going to help you to learn a specific skill, find a little bit of data that you were missing, or just make you aware of some new options that you weren't before. And of course, more than just resource sharing, the community support is always available to you. There's the community within this program, and there's also the larger community within Climate Farmers of, at this point, I think more than 500 farmers. So putting your questions in there, seeing if anybody has any experience or advice that they can share with you, might even be able to shortcut the learning curve that you're on. Another great way that the community can help out is if you're considering something, or you already have a plan or a management strategy that you would like to roll out, you can post your considerations there and see if you can get some opinions and some reviews from people who have either tried them before or tried similar things that might be able to give you some more perspective on what you're considering doing. Now, if you're not sure which of these resources to tap into, if you have no idea even where to start, I can give some recommendations right now. So if you have no idea even where to start, maybe a coach or a consultant could be a good option for you. They can help you get a big overview of what it is you're dealing with and help to roll out options and considerations and then guide you through that process. If you already know what you need to learn, but are just starting, maybe a full course would be good for you that will get you the in-depth knowledge about a certain sector that could be the difference between success and failure in your strategy. Now, maybe you already know a whole lot, but you want some options and ideas. Well, knowledge resources and tapping into the community for very specific advice might be the way to go for you. And if you have very specific questions and troubleshooting, again, the community or maybe a direct consultation could give you that specific bit of advice or information that could help to unblock your process. Now, here in the knowledge library for this step, we also have a PDF which is editable for decision-making checks. This is very similar to the decision-making framework from the Savory Institute and goes along with making your unique context into an active and useful document. These are some very useful questions that can help to guide different possibilities that you might be evaluating for implementation in your strategy. And this can give you a very simple way to make evaluations and keep this on a sheet that can make it easier then to communicate to the rest of the people that you work with. Questions like, does this action solve the root of the problem or the challenges that I have, or just a symptom? You can put some notes here and either check or give an X if it doesn't apply. Could this action create a weak link in any of the following areas? Now, the areas are put here down below that are not in bold text. So put stress on people that we depend on for support, degrade our resource base, our means of production, or our income sources, degrade any essential ecological functions on our land. If this applies to any of these, it's worth noting here. Then, does the money or the resources to be used for this action come from the most appropriate sources according to the values expressed in our context? If one of your values is to use as many local resources as possible, this could be one of the areas that applies for you. If from a financial point of view, you are determined not to take on any loans or debt that you're unsure that you can finance, this is also another way that this question could apply. Will the way that the investment be used be in line with our unique context? This is, again, why we go back to that unique context as a compass for making these types of decisions. If one of the things that you're evaluating might take you further away from the quality life or the resource base that you say that you want for the future, this is something to take note of. Will this action bring us closer or further away from the quality of life or future resource base that we articulated in our context? And this is exactly why we use that document as a compass for decision making. This is also a place where you can compare two or more options by seeing which ones connect with this criteria better than others. For example, which option represents the best investment in money and time towards the intended outcome? Surely one of these is likely to come out ahead of the others. Which option would contribute the most towards covering the overhead costs of the farm business? This is an important financial consideration. And then lastly, and most importantly, how do we feel about this decision? What does our intuition tell us about this action or investment? This is what is often referred to as the gut check. So perhaps there's an option that has brought you all the way through here and it's looking pretty good, but by the time you get to the gut check, it just doesn't feel right. This is partly to recognize the importance of our intuition in our decision-making process, and it could be the thing that causes you to reevaluate or look at another option to one that just feels better with you. So another one of the useful applications of having defined your unique context is in using it to evaluate different decisions. This accomplishes two things. It can test different possible actions for their alignment in both the short term and the long term vision that you have for your farm. And it can also stress test your context to see if what you've articulated in that document represents your core values when it comes to real world examples. Now that you have a list of metrics and possible courses of action and management that could help you to improve in your chosen areas, let's examine each option through a simple line of questioning to compare them to each other and to your unique context. By doing so, we will build a better understanding of what might be both effective in achieving your goals and represent your values and your priorities as an organization. So this decision-making document is meant to help to organize and compare multiple options in a way that makes it easy for you to recall why you make certain decisions and to communicate that criteria effectively between multiple team members. You might even get to a point where the members of your team feel confident enough in their understanding of your organization's unique context to be able to make decisions for the group from this perspective. Maintaining these records by holding on to these forms that you filled out can then make it really easy to audit previous decisions and communicate the criteria by which they were made for everybody's understanding.